there's this call on the part of Jaspers and Heidegger to be aware of death, and that's something that we can say, that we're aware of death. That is, we're all aware of death. Once we get to be a certain age, we're aware of the reality of death for every living thing. But there's being aware of something, and then there's really sort of taking something to heart, I guess. And one of, I think, the stronger points of the essay comes from Heidegger, and that is that we have a tendency to depersonalize death, and I think a suggestion is that that's a form of avoidance. On page 120, Gray says, "We rob ourselves of the sense of death's reality by making of it a public event, something that happens to everyone indiscriminately and hence to no one in particular. We strive to make death just another event among many, happening every day to somebody, and presumably someday to me, but it doesn't concern me at this time. Death is certain, we are wont to say, but it hasn't happened to me yet. By our very manner of speaking, we betray our desire to evade this most private, isolated, and unsurpassable possibility. In the end, there comes to be a tacit agreement not to speak about death." So the important thing, I think, is to not sort of be aware of death in a generic sense. To say human beings die, but to truly be able to say, I will die. And to say that and be aware of my own death is really what they're talking about, this notion of being towards death. But I think it's completely justified to ask, and Gray, of course, does ask at the end of the essay, what exactly we're supposed to get out of this awareness of death, this recognition of our defenselessness, this recognition that every life ends in shipwreck, as Jaspers says. I mean, what exactly are we supposed to get out of this? Well, I think this is a connection with time. That is, that if one realizes that life itself is a kind of a constant projection towards the future, life itself is a constant sort of coming from the past, but that the now, the present moment, is our only reality. As Gray says on page 121, I have no claim on any but the present moment. That is, that one realizes that one's life is not kind of a narrative that will very neatly fall into chapters and then resolve in some sort of completeness, that life can be cut off at any time. And there will be no fulfillment. There will be no completeness. There will be no, what the philosophers call a telos, an end that will fulfill things. That is, that I will, to some extent, be unfulfilled. I will not complete in some sort of way that will make everything sort of come to a neat end. That this awareness of one's exposure, of the inevitability of shipwreck in one's life, makes one realize that the present is all one has. That is, I have no claim on any but the present moment. On it, however, I have an absolute claim. That seems to be very important. That is, that one realizes that the present is all one has, but on the other hand, one has it completely. So again, on page 122, the present moment is all we ever experience and inhabit. The suggestion is that an awareness, a personal awareness of death, makes one more conscious of the present moment as all one has and as something that one has absolutely. This would be being unto death, which is something that apparently Heidegger borrowed from Kierkegaard, that phrase. Being unto death is a way of life. To be existentially is to be in the truth. It's something from page 123. So what is I guess the suggestion there, finally, is that we all want to live in the truth. We don't want to live in illusion. We like to be comfortable, but we don't want to sacrifice our awareness of our true situation for the sake of comfort all the time. An awareness of death makes one aware of the precariousness of one's existence and the finite and limited nature of one's existence. It makes one realize that all we're guaranteed, which is not very much, is the present moment, but that the present moment is ours absolutely. Of course, I think that although this is not emphasized, I think, in Gray's essay, is what this makes us realize is our own freedom. That is, that life is not a preset thing. We know this. Life is not, the narrative of our lives is not written beforehand and we just sort of follow out the steps. That's not the way it is. Every moment we, as is said in the beginning of the essay, we have to sort of create our own meaning. We're called upon to constantly create our own meaning by seizing this present moment and making it meaningful. It won't become meaningful on its own. An awareness of death makes us aware of both our freedom, that is, that things aren't preset, nothing is guaranteed, there are no steps to follow, and also makes us realize our responsibility for ourselves and for our lives and for the meaning that our lives have. That is the tragic notion that we all know that our lives will end in shipwreck, that there are these boundary situations, as Jasper puts it, these brick walls that we run into where there seems to be no solution. Kierkegaard called despair. And our dread of these things is, in a way, our facing of reality, of our true situation. That no matter how comfortable our lives can be made, and we can do things to make our lives more comfortable, and there's nothing wrong with that. At the bottom of that, there is the reality that there are certain situations that cannot be made more comfortable. There's certain solutions, or certain problems to which there are no solutions, and it's a recognition of that the existentialists seem to be promoting. The recognition, again, that death is a phenomenon within life. If it is taken into life in a personal way, it will affect a revolution in our behavior. And again, this is a kind of criticism of Epicurus, too, of course, because Epicurus was saying, quite reasonably, that death is not a phenomenon within life. It is something that marks the boundary of life and therefore is outside of life. I think that, I don't know, it'd be a very interesting inquiry to see if Epicurus and existentialism are really at odds with one another or not. But certainly it's a different approach to looking forward to death.